Trafford. Oh, that's it.
Right then, we are live here with these heroic gentlemen as they complete this amazing challenge. This is the first ever Talent Equation live. We are recording a podcast live, but whilst also streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and join us in. I am delighted. I'm actually delighted to join this fabulous fellow and his. Is it fair to call you a sidekick, Mitch? I don't know. Helper, supporter, general all-round good egg. Anyway, all of the above. Gary Laybourne from the CEO of Coach Core on your epic 201.4 something like that mile charity bike ride going from the Oval to Old Trafford. You'll see on the bottom of the live stream the Just Giving link. Please hit that and go and contribute to this fantastic charity. I'm very, very privileged to be able to say that I get the opportunity to work with these guys and help them a little bit with this and support them a little bit with the work that they do to help young people on towards a career journey into the wonderful world of coaching. Anyway, Gary, how are you, sir?
I'm all right. I was just saying, I think you've caught me at the right time. We've done 1 hour, 4 minutes. So the backside is feeling all right. The mood is high. We're doing good. So it's as it's the Move 2021, in keeping with the theme, it's 202.1 miles from our head office at the Oval to one of our amazing partners, Lancashire Cricket at Old Trafford. And as soon as I sort of clocked that, I was thinking, there's a stupid challenge to be done, eh? So yes, and it's Friday and it's end of February and there's nothing but sunshine and vaccines on the horizon, so it's all good.
Well, it's fantastic that we're able to do this, the miracles of technology. So anyway, explain to me first and foremost as a starting point. We'll obviously go into the back history, but what is the challenge all about, and what kind of is your principal idea behind doing this in the first place?
So for many of you that know, but for those that don't, Coach Core has been a program, a charitable program of the Royal Foundation for 8 years. So in that time, we were able to really build and grow and show the impact of our model, which, there's not many do what we do in the space that we work. And so as of sort of the way of Royal Foundation, the program just became too successful, if I can be so bold. And so the time was for us to become our own charity. So we had to fast track some plans across 2019 to leave the Royal Foundation. And then obviously on the 1st of April 2020, we set up Coach Core slap bang in the middle of a global pandemic. So it's been an interesting 12 months to say the least. But because of that, we've not been able to really hold our first fundraisers, do sort of many of the first milestone things that a charity would want to do. So although I jokingly alluded to it earlier, now that the mood is starting to sort of turn much more positive, the sector feels like it's, can plan and can rebuild and things like that. It felt like the right time. We didn't want to try and raise money and do a load of things at a time where obviously people were, suffering as they continue to do. But it just felt like the right time for us to really sort of not only do that fundraising piece, but actually through the ethos of Move 2021, get people connected through physical activity and sport. And I'm just blown away today. I mean, obviously I've got people with me right now, if I can spin you around. So that's Zwift. I've got a lovely peloton of people keeping me company virtually on my ride as we exit now the M25. But I've also got some amazing people, some organisations have joined the challenge and are doing 202 miles with me today from 7 till 7. So, yeah, just blown away by the support. But as I say, it was, yes, a fundraising thing, but we wanted to reflect, hopefully, what is, some positive news at last.
Well, I have to say I'm full of admiration. And one thing I was going to say is that I genuinely believe that you're absolutely right as far as the timing is concerned. And the reason I would say that is because one of the things that we know is we've got two major challenges on our hands as we emerge out of the pandemic. One is enabling people to get back to being physically active, particularly if they're, say, young people who are looking for opportunities to, get, to play sport and to have, coaches lead that sport, but also, older people as well who are reliant on individuals who provide them with the motivation that, go into an exercise class or go into a sports activity might bring them. And so we want to be able to do that, but also we're going to need to make sure that we've got people there who can provide those physical activity sessions.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest issues that we're facing, of course, is during this lockdown, the various lockdowns, many people have had to find alternative work. So, of course, bringing this kind of army of new coaches back into our community is a really important factor. And not only can we do that via Coach Core, but you've got the opportunity to actually take young people and actually put them on that sort of very positive career journey. And I've been fortunate enough to meet many of your apprentices that you work with, and they are some of the most inspiring people that I've ever met. And it's a testament to not just the work that the charity does, but they're the testament in the sense that, the impact that they can have in their communities and do have in their communities, not just during the program, but beyond the program, is amazing. So I wonder if you wouldn't mind just talking us through a little bit about kind of what Coach Core is and what it does for those who may not have heard of it. I mean, I know you said earlier on that you've been remarkably successful, which you have, but there might still be people out there who have not heard of Coach Core. So tell us the story.
Yeah, and to be honest, that blame lays at my feet, because as a program manager, not savvy in the world of digitals and comms and things, very much being a coach from the age of 17, I've just not banged the drum hard enough. And now that we are our own charity, I'm so fortunate. I'm surrounded by an incredible team that can run the programs, and connect with our young people brilliantly. But critically, we can fundraise, we can spread the word, and we can really start to expand now. So, I mean, Coach Core, look, from the off, we're nothing special in the sense of all we're doing is convening and enabling things that typically might go on anyway. So the key difference between us is that where we've got these amazing organizations doing those hard yards, we're partnering with them to give them exit routes for some of that really untapped talent. And with the way that we focus and matrix our work to ensure we're going into cities and areas that really need the opportunity most. And that might be youth unemployment, which is obviously skyrocketing right now. That might be education attainment, youth crime, whatever it is. We make a point of, focusing our work in certain areas. And therefore, the people come to us essentially in that sense through these incredible employers that are already long doing what they've done. And we can't really bring anything to the table to them, for the work that they do. But what we can do is connect them. We can boost them by showing them the other opportunities that are available, not just for their apprentices, but for the other people that might be in that group. And critically, then saying to young people, look, as you rightly say, the talent is incredible. If you give a young person an opportunity, particularly someone that is hungry, from a disadvantaged background, that wants to prove people wrong, if we're being blunt, but also who better to be a walking, talking role model in the community than them. So, if I put myself there, I've been a coach for so many years. Could I walk into Liverpool and run a coaching session? I'd like to think so. It'd take me a long time to build the trust of the lads or the girls on a certain estate. My 16-year-old apprentice that we've just hired, everything to learn about being a coach. That's my job, to mentor and help him. But actually, nothing to learn about coming from that estate, and can really connect with those kids. So we are essentially an apprenticeship charity, convening training providers and employers together to enable change in those areas. And the role of Coach Core then is just to simply fundraise to help support with a bit of an employer grant into a co-investment scheme so that there's long-term sustainability and change. And we've been doing that since 2012. And thanks to partnerships like, with your good self, Sport England, and a number of others, we're just now starting to be able to really grow and take that to new areas all the time.
Awesome. It's such a great story. And like I said, this is one of those talent equation podcasts where I actually have that fantastic pleasure of being able to cross over between what I do outside of work and what I do inside of work, because I mean, you've been a long overdue guest for this podcast for some time, because I really wanted to be able to tell the world, my audience, which is predominantly an audience of coaches and researchers, about the work that you do. It's not it's
you
not
just
what
thought
a lot
you'd
of
wait
people.
until I couldn't breathe and was hyperventilating for 12 hours. Thanks.
Well, I knew I needed to be at an advantage, so I thought this would be the moment. But also, what better chance to actually, you know, stimulate this, because not only are we able to record a podcast and tell your story and tell the story of Coach Core, but you're also able to we're able to actually do something positive, which is to raise the profile of what you're trying to do and hopefully raise some money. So it was an opportune moment. I'm just going to switch over now to your. If I think of you, if you're the Don Quixote, then this is the Sancho Panza or Pancho of your support group. But actually, an important member in the Coach Core story as well, because Mitch, very well known in the sport and physical activity world, has been on the board of trustees with Coach Core for a long, long time. So, Mitch, I mean, you know, what's it like riding alongside this? I mean, he's a serious athlete anyway. So, you know, how are you feeling?
This is a piece of cake, Arnie. I mean, seriously, being his corner man, it's been it's fine. It's been an early start. We've had a few tech challenges, but we are game on, rocking and rolling. And I'm sat with him on a cheeky watt bike that he's had lined up for me. So yeah, all good so far.
I'm getting a lot of messages from some friends asking me why I'm not on my bike, and just to let them know and to reassure them, myself and the family will be doing our miles over the next 12 hours. Trust me, I've got a number of walks, rides, laps of the house planned. So my kids think they're in for an easy day, but that's not going to happen.
Fun time Friday, right?
Mitch, tell me about. I mean, you've been on the board for this group for a long time. What was it about this particular project? I mean, I'm indebted to you for introducing me to them, to be honest. Not that I probably wouldn't have found them eventually, but one of the absolutely many great things that knowing you is great for is the fact that you are able to make connections, and you make a lot of them. So it's really valuable connection that you were able to get me in touch with Gary and what he was trying to do with Coach Core. But, you know, from your perspective, being on the board, what is it about this project that, you know, kind of brought you to it, and, you know, and you give your time voluntarily to support it, but just to get, you know, a sense of what it means to you.
Yeah, well, as you know, Stu, I've long been an advocate of apprenticeships in sport. Had a background in coaching myself, and I guess when the program was initiated, initially it was just a program really from the Royal Foundation, partnering with Coach Core back in 2012. I guess I was kind of there at the first meeting and helped get things moving. But for most of that duration, I've just been an advisory board member. No formal role, no formal capacity. And then as we got the green light to exit from the Royal Foundation in 2019, I guess I had a choice to make. Did I want to carry on that, just being an advisory board and a friend, or convert to a trustee? And I put my hand up to become a trustee of the foundation. And yeah, we are in a really exciting place now. Got a good, diverse, skill-based board of trustees that support Gary and the team. They've done an incredible job in the last 10 months. And as Gary jokes, who would open a charity on the 1st of March 2020 as we walked into a global pandemic? Not an ideal start. But yeah, thanks to the support of organisations like Sport England, funders and partners and donors across the sector, we managed to keep going, keep trucking, keep supporting our apprentices, keep putting great content out there, keep building new partnerships in new locations. And yeah, for me, this is, I guess, been a long journey, but I fundamentally believe that programs like Coach Core and the charity that we now are can play a fundamental role in changing the game around coach education, coach development, coach recruitment. And as you well recognise, if we want a sport and physical activity workforce that is societally and culturally reflective, we need to change the game. We need to go and get hold of some of these incredible young people, put them on a great programme of learning and development, surround them with love and mentors and people that can guide them along the way, give them some great training, and let them fly on the front line. So yeah, it's been a great journey for me. I'm delighted to still be involved, and yeah, if nothing else today, I thought I could do my bit. I was supposed to only really be here to mop his brow for 12 hours, but when this watt bike turned up, so I've committed to do 60 miles myself, because I certainly don't have 202.1 miles in the tank. But we've got some great conversations lined up across the day with people in coaching, and no better start than a live pod with you. So yeah, all good.
Well, it's awesome that you're there. It's awesome that you're supporting, and it's awesome that you're able to, ride alongside. And 60 miles is still pretty impressive. It's probably a good 50 miles more than I've got in my tank. But we all have our strengths and weaknesses. Gary, coming back to you then. What's your? Tell me your story then. Like, I mean, this is the reason. I mean, you are extremely passionate about what you do with Coach Core, and for good reason, because I think it resonates a lot with your own journey in lots of ways. So talk me through that. Take me right back to the start, the origin story, so to speak. You need to come off mute though.
Mitch.
There we go.
I'll blame the fatigue that's slowly creeping in.
I'll let you off.
So I interesting background, I suppose. I mean, I grew up first of all in Brixton initially, as a real Litley, and then we moved to South Devon, to a place called Torbay, which is your stereotypical glorious. I mean, it still is. I still call it home. Still feel very much a Devon lad, but it's the 16th most deprived ward in the country. So, kind of council estate. Parents bankrupt twice, but the key thing was both my parents were together. So, whilst the area was punchy and we didn't have a great deal, I never felt disadvantaged, and I still don't, compared to obviously certainly what we see on our programs. But I was very fortunate that the positive figure in my life came quite early in a form of a really good PE teacher. And I was getting in quite a bit of trouble at school in the early days. And we used to split on two sites, and it was one site at the bottom just used to cause chaos, and then getting ready to move up in year 9 into this other site, I was like, there's 23 form school here, like as long as I don't get that one teacher, I'll be all right. And of course I got him, and it was the best thing that ever happened. He was great. So really sort of unearthed what I could do in sport and a love for sport that was already there. I was a very average footballer, thought I was better than I was. But certainly never used to really get tired. So then got quickly put on a running track. So was really focusing on that for a long time, and thinking that was my future, to the point that I didn't really do much of my A-levels. Flunked those, but luckily still got into St Mary's. And that's when my coaching, that's when my coaching journey kind of started as well. So realizing very quickly that, that is a different level. When you go to a university with Mo Farah, you know that there's another level to find. So started coaching, really enjoyed it, but was still coaching at like academies and all of that kind of stuff. The big change in my life came when I took a 6-month stopgap job with Greenhouse. So just as a head coach, to transition from, leaving one job into another, and stayed there 6.5 years. And never say never, but I don't think I'll go back to elite or professional side of the game again, because what it taught me was the background that I do have and the experiences that I've had. It's almost selfish is the way I looked at it, to not try to use that to then help other like young people. Particularly the school that I was based at originally was between Peckham and New Cross. So there was a lot of gang warfare, still is. And my job was basically Monday to Friday, sun up, sun down, being a mentor, bigger brother, as much as an athletics head coach for that school. So sport very much coming second. And I just loved it every single day, going in, feeling like you're making a difference. But then critically, we'd get to year 11, and some of those 16-year-olds disappearing back to sort of, some of the most infamous estates there are in this country, knowing that their futures looked awful, but they were really good kids. And it was heartbreaking. And on the other side of the coin, we were being given really well, good, meaning volunteers, as is the way in our sector, but really transient. They wouldn't stay around long after their 12 weeks was up, or a great part-time coach that would then leave, So you'd have to retrain up another. And it was that kind of just light bulb, oh my God, why haven't we thought of this before moment that gave birth to Coach Corps? Well, if they're bloody good kids and they're from that area and they love sport, but they don't want to go back into a classroom, let's get them as our future generation workforce coaches. And let's make sure then critically we can keep an eye on them and keep developing them as people for the next 18 months as well. And there is basically the birth of Coach Corps between myself and a number of amazing head coaches and staff at Greenhouse that put the idea together, and we're just fortunate at right place, right time that Royal Foundation came along and took it. So yeah, I mean, on the side, I picked back up. I left the track for a long time. I had my fat years. They were great. Really enjoyed those. But I found triathlon probably a bit too late now when I really think about it, and, you know, still compete to a half decent level, or did at that. So I'd like to think it's kind of actions over words and, you know, doing that is helping me get some traction with our young people. Hope that helps answer the question.
No, it's great, and I think it's an important thing as well, because you know, whenever I chat with you or we're talking about the difficulties that you faced, I mean, it is probably worth mentioning that I mean, the pandemic was obviously extremely challenging, but beyond that, I mean, even before this point, you know, you've kind of gone for what I would consider to be like the perfect storm of difficulty. You know, so yeah. I know you, and you know, you are people. You're the kind of guy who does these kinds of challenges, right? So you're not adverse to difficulty and hardship. You know, you are a very resilient character. But yeah. You know, the approach that Coach Corps takes, it's not. You could do it a lot easier than the way you do it, but you do it, in my opinion, in the right way. A challenging way. It's challenging, but particularly for the kids that you're working with, yeah. And the approach that you're taking, you know, linking with apprenticeships, which for our sector has been quite challenging for a lot of different reasons, you know, but actually adopting apprenticeships and utilizing apprenticeships as a means to help these young people into coaching, I think is a really important thing. Now, the reason I would say that is because traditional coach education probably wouldn't work for many of these kids. You know, sending people off to go and do coach courses and then expecting them to be able to then just go. You do it a very, very different way. It's far more in depth. It's far more about meeting them where they are. It's far more about that wraparound support. You know, and I think genuinely, you know, having met a number of those apprentices, you know, the way they talk about their journey, but also then the way that they articulate, the way that they approach things is like a really strong testimony. So, yeah. I mean, I'd just be worth you just talking through some of that, because, you know, I mean, it's hard. It is very hard what you do. I can't, you know, yeah. I have to say you know, you could do it an awful lot easier, but you are doing it, in my opinion, the right way. I will say that again. So just speak to that for a bit.
Yeah, it's interesting because we used to hear that so much more in the early days, funnily enough. It won't work. It's too hard. It's too expensive. It's too complex. And, you know, again, we know each other well, Stuart, but I'd like to think of all the things that I have. An ego isn't one of them. But if I can pat myself on the back for one thing, for me and my team, it's that we've always stayed strong and solid and refused to budge on that issue. So the way that we do things differently, again, going back to kind of what I alluded to earlier, why are we teaching coaches how to be coaches in a classroom? It makes no sense to me. There's elements of theory, I get it. But certainly before we had set up, my experiences of apprenticeships were a young person goes to college, issue number one, by the way, goes to a college to do their education for a day. I don't know who the heck that tutor is. I never did. I just used to get rewarded with this thick old folder that was my responsibility as the employer to fill out. So then 4 days a week, they were shoved back in my care. And if I was, you know, no one checked, I could have been lazy, crap. You know, my wife would probably argue I am, but all of those things. But basically, there was no check or challenge. So I could have been influencing that young person at the most critical time of their professional lives in completely the wrong way. So what we wanted to do was flip that on its head. So from the off, we're not going to put you in college. We're going to bring the theory and the practical to you. We're going to teach you how to be coaches out and about. And any theory that we do, will be in employer venues and places that you want to go to, essentially. Point one. Point two, we engage with training providers almost on a CSR basis. So Lifetime Training are our biggest, Street Games we've worked with. Glasgow Sport have put Coach Core now onto the actual framework in Scotland. So, you know, a number of different training providers that we work with, that critically the model is that they have a tutor dedicated to Coach Core. They don't work with one group on Monday, another group on Tuesday, another group on Wednesday. They are there to do, let's say, education Monday, and then go and support in the field, because it's the employers that also need the support as much as the young people. We just did a survey recently, Faz in my team, 90% of the employers, I beg your pardon, that we spoke to recently had never taken an apprentice on before. So it shows this sector is still not synonymous and embracing the world of apprenticeships. So you need to give them support as much as you do the apprentices. So that's the kind of education heart of it, is focus on that young person's personal development as much as the professional development. And that's why we call ourselves an apprenticeship sports charity. We, you know, key number one for us is that they finish the program and they go into employment and education. If that's as a coach, great. If it's not, it doesn't matter, because we will have given them so many experiences through that multi-employer, multi-partner working that we do, that they can have the skill sets, qualifications and experience that they can't be ignored. Doesn't matter what they look like, talk like, come from, you cannot ignore them at a job. And that was one of the biggest challenges when we first started. Incredible, well-meaning organisations that we still work with today, so it's not to disrespect them at all, but they can only take a young person so far. Level 1, 12 weeks. If they go and stand in front of an employer, that's not going to get them another job. So that's why the power of apprenticeships, keeping them in, and then why would you want to let them go? You've just shaped them for 12, 18 months. They reflect your values and your workforce ethos better than probably anyone at that point. So yeah, that's essentially how the education element differs.
Yeah, I mean, it's and like you say, you know, because apprenticeships have been on such a sort of turbulent journey, and like you say, there's so many reasons why within our sports world there's some real challenges with embracing them, but it's definitely the right way to go, and you are definitely trailblazing that. And one of the things to be able to do is to sort of articulate to others approach. Now, I'm not, and I know it is challenging, but once you work it out and once you find a method and approach, then you've got the opportunity to do that. Mitch, bringing you in, you have spent probably the bulk of your life working in apprenticeships. In fact, we first met through a brainwave, I think, that you and some colleagues had when you were working at Skills Active around the creation of an apprenticeship in sporting excellence, when I was working in golf. And it transformative for our pathway, because it meant that we were able to provide a support package to kids that we probably wouldn't otherwise be able to provide a support package to. And you know, ordinarily, a lot of the kids who were involved in our sport at the time, surprise, surprise, you know, were you know, fairly affluent, and so we were able to provide a much broader, wider offer through the advanced apprenticeship. But I know you were also kind of heavily involved in the creation of the apprenticeship, the coaching apprenticeship that Coach Core utilizes. Just talk to me about, you know, kind of your perspectives on apprenticeships and their value for sport, physical activity in this country, and what possibilities there are.
Cool. Yeah, as you say, Stuart, I guess it's probably my favourite subject. Just a quick positive history, I guess, because Gary talked about his upbringing. Mine in Coventry, working in play schemes in teenage years, working on cricket camps, volunteering as a kind of teenager, cutting my teeth in South Africa, coaching in a school over there for a year, 4 years at Loughborough, thinking that I was going to come out and run the sports industry. And then a year in a van up and down the M4 and the M40, coaching in schools with a bag of kit. And then I got to Skills Active, as you say, 2004. And yeah, we'd been asked by central government to have a look at the academy problem in football and young players doing a multitude of different things, none of which particularly structured or high quality to aid their development away from the field of play. So yeah, ACE was a brainchild, and I oversaw that program for 10 years and worked with yourself and other colleagues in, I think, 24 different sports that took it on eventually. And yeah, that taught me about how apprenticeships work and how they operate. Cross over then into coach call world and my world for the last 5 or 6 years. Absolutely, I think the sector is missing an enormous trick about not really engaging with the apprenticeship landscape. Not just about funding, not just about learning from other sectors, but genuinely an opportunity to change the game about how we recruit, deploy, retain, and grow talent. And yes, we've got the apprenticeship program for athletes, and that's still operating in pro sports, and other sports now do a program called DICE for their 16 to 19-year-olds. Similar method. But yeah, having now written 4 apprenticeship standards in the last few years, particularly the community activated coach, which, as you say, Gary and Coach Core and the team use, but more recently the level 4 sports coach standard as well. I genuinely believe that if we can bust those myths, if we can make it simple, if we can give the adequate support to the employers and the deployers out there, organisations like Coach Core and a number of others that champion this role, it's a massive opportunity to change the face of the workforce for the future. And as we say, that societally, culturally reflective workforce that Sport England strategy talks about, government talks about, the kind of stuff that's going to change the dial around inactivity levels, we need to think differently. And apprenticeships, Coach Core in particular, is a great way of doing that. Recruiting talent from a different pool, giving them a high quality program of learning and development, supporting them in the workplace with mentoring, ongoing CPD, helping them flourish, and giving them a breadth of experiences. And we know around the country that coaches working in one environment then get to learn from each other in different domains in different organisations. So yeah, Coach Core is definitely part of the solution. But yeah, apprenticeships are my favourite subject. Sport should take them far more seriously, and they are a great way of recruiting, developing and retaining talent. And if other sectors can do it, it's about time we grew up a bit and took it more seriously.
Why would you say that an apprenticeship over and above kind of a more traditional coach education model, in your opinion, provides kind of a better learning experience and therefore a better coaching outcome?
Listen, I'm definitely no coaching guru. There are far better people around the country, particularly on social media, well placed to be the coaching experts. But I think if you talk to most people in coach education, the single most important part is a high quality learning program, an opportunity to learn and develop on the job, an opportunity to reflect, an opportunity to learn from a master practitioner, and an opportunity to see where they're going. And I think for me, that's what an apprenticeship does. That's what it stands for. Whereas we have in this country for a long time had a perhaps not so progressive model that puts people on a course, 3 Sunday mornings, plug and play resources, some great tutors and some great mentors and assessors, but perhaps just working in the wrong way. And yeah, I genuinely think the component parts of an apprenticeship, if you talk to anybody in coaching, the component parts are developing good coaches. We just haven't really connected the 2 dots.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, one of the things when you're both talking earlier, and I'll come back to you in a second, Gary, but is I was thinking about how, coaching to a certain extent or learning to be a coach is almost to me anyway, feels like a life skill. And the reason I say that, and you mentioned earlier about how a lot of the apprentices, some of them go on for a career in coaching, but others go on to further education or to other roles. And one of the reasons I think that's true is, I use my coaching skills, if you like, every day. I use them in my, when I'm working with my team. I use them when I'm engaging with other colleagues. I use them when I'm, kind of tackling challenges. I use them when I'm parenting. I use them to support my wife, who's growing her business and is engaged with a partner and working out different things with her. So I've got lots of routes with this. And then I also think that like our learning and development team at Sport England, fabulous lady called Jane Megginson Hill, who's sadly leaving us, but she launched a program internally called Line Manager as Coach. And it was and I worked with her on it, and it was very much about bringing coaching skills into management within our organization to then foster a more, kind of innovative and collaborative culture. So, if there was any doubt in my mind about the value of young people learning coaching skills as a springboard for a future career, I mean, it's basically been eroded by many of those entities. Gary, your apprentices show this every single day. I mean, I know they would probably tell the story better, but look, just tell me a couple of that sort of stick out in your mind of individuals who probably illustrate as a case study what we're talking about. Bring it to life. Unmute though first.
The worst bit is everybody on our group has gone except for two of my absolute hand grenade training partners that are trying to drag me along far quicker than I should be at the So two come straight to mind that are quite punchy stories. So I obviously won't mention names, but one young man at Nottingham, that was our first consortium program. And, as ever in F-word ethos and honesty, I thought we'd got it sussed. I thought we'd worked out the key problems of young people and the challenges that we might face. And this young man on the face of it, not a problem. Incredible coach, like really good. His employers loved him. And then the telltale signs started coming in of going missing and not turning up for sessions. And it was a real heart-to-heart with his mentor. And he said, look, my mum's died and I've been made homeless twice. So for any young person to have to process that, let alone when you live in one of the most deprived parts of a city and be expected to turn up with a happy smiley face as a junior apprentice, once again, we had to go back to the drawing board and say, how are we onboarding, supporting and mentoring in those first critical 3 months? Not just to ensure that we tick those boxes, but actually that they feel confident enough to report at any point right to the very last day with us and even beyond if they are going through strife. So there's a number of things like that. There's another apprentice in our Essex program that spoke very openly but privately, if that makes sense, about his mental health issues and the fact that he tried to take his own life. We've had teenage pregnancy, we've had murder, we've had a number of different things. But flipping it, as ever with me, I don't want to spend time on those subjects, really. Ours is about the positives. And so the biggest walking, talking one that we have works for us right now. So Terrell was part of the first ever greenhouse program. Lived in a very punchy part of town. But, good kids, not in trouble, nothing like that. So no drama, no, charity appeal story here or anything. But will admit himself, very shy, very unsure of what he wanted to do. Not really, a strong direction. And just thrived. He was excellent on the program. I had the honor of mentoring him myself. So he was excellent. And, to follow his journey was, proud enough as it was. But then to go full circle and come back as our first ever graduate that we employed and our first ever apprentice as well, hugely positive. And the other one I would mention as well because I stay in touch with her and I'm just so proud of her every day. There's a young girl called Kadra who she features on one of our Coach Core YouTube London programs. And we watched it the other day, funnily enough. And it's quite funny. 3.5 years ago when that was filmed, to watch her go, I don't know how this is going to go, if I'm honest. I'm not sure. Muslim girl, parents didn't want her on the course. I don't know how this is going to be. You can see it in her face. It's great. And now, not only has she gone on and gone to university, got a career in sport. I mean, what an incredible role model. But the good thing about the Coach Core program, as we kind of spoke about a little bit earlier, is that ripple effect that they create, that role model piece. So the table tennis club that she set up on her time in Coach Core for Muslim girls in a sport where obviously skin, religion, all those kind of things, are a challenge for some of those young people. That club is still thriving in her school. So, it just gives me immense pride that it's not just about what those apprentices achieve, it's the legacy that leave behind them. So I think that's, for us, why it's only 20 in each of our programs. Sorry, it's thousands of lives that get affected by those only 20s.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things to think about as well, I think, when when you look at these sorts of programs, the bit that people often miss is not only the impact they have while they're part of the Coach Core program, but it's that lifelong impact, because these individuals are going to have are going to be able to engage and communicate, regardless of even if they go on to, their likelihood is they're still going to be involved as coaches. They're still going to have had that amazing training. They're still going to have had that fantastic sort of community connection. And you guys made a really important point earlier on, and I need to. I know you've got a busy day of talking to people, so I don't want to monopolize your time too much. But I really want to draw on this a little bit, which is your cohort, your national cohort, which is anything between 150, 200 at any one time, and could get bigger actually. But one of the things about all that cohort of apprentices and the consortiums of employers that they're working with in communities is there's a real diversity in terms of their backgrounds, their stories, ethnicities. There's a real broad diversity, and that, in my opinion, is only possible by the fact that you're prepared to, like you say, kind of reach out, engage young people who aren't necessarily sure of what their direction might be, and in particular provide them with the kind of support that they need to get through this sort of learning program. It's a very different approach than kind of what I would consider to be the formal education approach, right? That's fine for lots of people. That's okay. That's fine. Go down the college route. This is an on-the-job learning model, right? So you start work, you begin the work, and you learn the job, and you record your learning as well as gaining your full qualification. And I think that approach of the kind of on-the-job learning, experiential learning, is a really powerful model. And I talk about this on the podcast a lot. But in particular, one of the other benefits for me is it means that you're able to bring into coaching people who otherwise might be missed by this. And it means that we get a fantastic diversity in the world of coaching. So I wonder if you wouldn't mind just expanding on that for me.
Yeah, I mean, two things. One, to almost press pause and back up a little bit. First and foremost, I listen to a number of different sort of podcasts, or certainly interviews, and one of those sort of key questions that runs through: how much is luck and how much is hard work? And anyone that says that it's all hard work and down to them, sorry, you're deluded. Absolutely deluded. Coach Core would not have existed 15 years ago. Simple. We were helped by the whatever we think of government in certain things, we were helped by that focus on apprenticeships. Point one. People like Mitch driving the agenda, really trying to get it through onto consciousness in our sector. The shift and change, present company absolutely accepted. I'm sorry I'm going to embarrass you, Stuart, but people like yourself that get this and understand this and are driving this at the very heart of what this sector and what our sports development arena does in the future. There's no way Coach Core would survive without that. So the fact that the dial has changed and people are open to collaborating and people are open to being honest and accepting failure and different ways of working. And as you say, this ability to now pop your head up and go, hang on, we've been hiring and firing the wrong way for so long. Let's look at this from a different angle. And as ever, my glass always full. This pandemic has been horrific and is horrific, but it's teaching people to rip their form book up and look in different ways now. So if we don't take this opportunity now, I don't want to be dramatic. It's not like to say we never will, but we've got a great chance to educate lots of employers about the power of this, and critically about the power of young people who are suffering so much now that we need to be careful that we don't frame this as a charity thing, because the impact that they can have, the quality of their work and the hunger that they have is off the chart. So that's point one. Point two, when you talk about sort of specifics, I'll give you one quick case study. When we set up the Coach Core Birmingham program, a long story short, with the Duchess's role at the LTA, we really wanted to sort of put some tennis presence in, and we Sport Birmingham, Mike and the team there again, amazing, really positive, forward-thinking, active partnership network there. Bought into this and brought some really good employees to the table, including Edgbaston Priory, very well-to-do, strong tennis club, professional circuit, right? And Billesley Tennis Club, just down the road. You know, absolutely no disrespect because the work is incredible, but very sort of tired leisure centre, pop-up facility type stuff outside, right? So give us a chance, you two employers, with Aston Villa, with Warwickshire Cricket, all of these other, you know, one-man, one-woman bands. Let's combine and put 20 apprentices in, and let's see what we can do. And let's teach your young apprentices, yes, to be tennis coaches working in your centres, but let's teach them about multi-sports and different ways of thinking and assisting you across the business, social media, front of house, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward 12 months, Edgbaston Priory, both apprentices to the end, member base absolutely loving the young workforce that look, talk very differently and can offer multi-sports to the kids of members. Billesley, 2 consistent workforce members offering tennis, you know, in really engaging ways, but from local people to the local community. And the cherry, all 4 weren't tennis players before they joined. None of them. And 3 out of 4 are still working in tennis right now, 4 years old.
What you mean? You don't have to be good at playing it to coach it?
Who'd have thunk? So it just shows you, you know, those guys that, you know, Stuart at Edgbaston, Matt at Billesley, they gave the time, they gave the hard graft in the early months to really shape and mentor those young people. And not only did they get them to the finish line and get that warm, fuzzy feeling, pat on the back, hell no, their business got 4 incredible employees out of it. So again, take a chance. If nothing else, come and learn about it a bit more, and you'll be amazed at what they can achieve.
Well, I mean, what better way to finish or to wrap up our conversation? Well, there is a kind of slightly better way. So one of the members of my team, the ever fabulous Kia O'Grogan,
Umbongo!
has put in a bit of love for you guys, saying, hey, GL and Mitch, don't even know how you can bike and coherently talk. Well, Gary is. It's really exciting how our young people could be future leaders in our sector and beyond. So loved how you aren't precious if we keep them, but building life skills, so important. So, yeah, so I'm not surprised that she would say something like that, because working alongside her, I know how passionate she is about the work that you guys do and the work, you know, in the whole people and leadership space. So listen, guys, I really appreciate you taking the time to join me. I'm, like I said earlier when we started this out, you know, I'm full of admiration for everything that you're doing outside of this. The fact that you're doing this as well is such a significant, well, it's a testament to your commitment to what you're doing. You know, I really hope the day goes well. I know you've got lots of people to talk to and you're live streaming all the way through. Final kind of quick plugs if you want to get people to sort of hit the fundraising. I've got the Twitter, I've got the ticker going along the bottom, but where do they go? Where's your Just Giving page, or where do they find you, Gary, if they want to find out more about Coach Core and actually get involved beyond just the fundraising side, if they actually are thinking about apprenticeships themselves or their employers thinking about taking on apprentices? What's the best way of them doing that?
If they head to, you know, look, first and foremost, again, I wouldn't be actually sort of doing myself any favours by saying that we work in collaboration and partnership with people and then just doing a shameless plug for Coach Core here. I would advise you to go and have a look around apprenticeships. I'd advise you to go and have a look at some of the advice that's on Sport England's sites. Do your research about the sort of apprentice that you want. Should that be a community-facing activator coach, and you want to work with other employers collectively on a project, coachcore.org.uk, or our Twitter channels and our app, We Are Coach Core. So have a look at what we do. The team, again, we are a charity. We're not a training provider. We're not an employer ourselves. There's literally no loss in speaking with us and just understanding more. We're always happy to do that, help to advise as much, just bring people onto programs. So have a look at our channels. As you say, you've really kindly put the Just Giving link for today's fundraiser there, which is going to help us, you know, provide those grants to get more young people back into employment who, you know, really need the support right now. So, you know, huge thanks, Stuart. Oh yeah, and on the socials, beg your pardon, for anyone that is getting active today, there's a Strava Coach Core Foundation Club. Anyone that joins that and puts hashtag Move 2021 in their workout title, we're going to keep an eye on that and give some shout outs today. So yeah, all good.
As long as they're not hand grenade training partners that are going to get you to Manchester about 5 hours early.
I know, I'm already half an hour ahead. This is not going to end well at the minute. So.
Mitch, a final little word from you.
Well, thank you, Army. Yeah, great to have the opportunity to chat this morning and yeah, just lift the lid on my favourite subject. But yeah, get involved today. Anyone that's moving, walking, running, cycling, join in and help raise a profile on socials. Gary is doing an absolute sterling job, and if I can try and be his wingman for the next 10 hours, we'll certainly have a couple of scoops later on. But yeah, apprenticeships are definitely the way forward for the sport and physical activity sector, and we need to start having some big grown-up conversations about how we do them properly and how we give that next generation a real chance to play it forward. But yeah, top bombing. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, fellas. I really appreciate you joining me. Full of admiration, humbled by you, and good luck for the rest of the day.
Thanks, Army.
Hello, Twitter.